And it is it is Martin Luther King Day, Martin Luther King Jr. Day. So hope y'all is celebrating that or paying attention to that. I'm not paying attention to the other thing that's going on right now. I'm not watching the news. I am avoiding it on social media. This is where I'm at with Luther King Day. But I just thought I'd go live to do answer some FAQs around the whole living abroad, moving abroad, I don't know, topic and the discussion around that, like all the things. So I am just going to answer some questions I see come up on social media or questions that have been asked of me around this topic. So let me get the right window open here. All right. So giving you my undivided attention. All right. So even if you catch in a replay, it's quite all right. You can drop questions in to the comments, and I will come back and respond to your question if I can, if it's something I feel like I am qualified to answer. I'll respond to you no matter what, but I might direct you elsewhere for the answer, or I might give you the answer based on my experiences. So, first, I am Marcia Hilton, aka Marcia Unbound. I am a digital nomad, and I help primarily Black women find their way into the digital nomad life, like find their way into an expat life where they're able to earn a living based on skills they already have, skills that already exist for them, even if it's not what they've done in their career throughout the years, but skills they already have, some they don't know they have or they haven't identified as marketable, monetizable skills. I help Black women identify those and find ways to utilize them to earn income while living abroad. I also help them navigate the path to getting abroad and choosing their own country, the right country for themselves. So um, that's primarily what I do. I spend my time learning about other countries, traveling other countries, trying to practice some languages. I'm trying to master Spanish right now. I I get more practice than I used to get anyway with Spanish. Currently, I'm in Houston, Texas. I just sold my house that I had in El Paso, Texas. It took a few months longer than I expected. So I just sold it, and I'm in Houston because this phase this is my digital nomad V2 version 2. In this phase, I'm not going to have any uh, property or any specific connections here in the US that require me to have financial responsibilities to property. So before, when I kicked this all off in late 2014, I still had property. And then I sold one piece of property, and I moved to another part of Texas. I was in Houston, then I moved to South Texas. And there I had property and I was traveling more frequently than ever. Sometimes every month I was in a different country, but I still had my home, my house. And I'd come back there. I wanted to have that base to come back to, but it meant at the time I had a significant piece of property and I had, people did the yard. I had a maintenance person, I had a housekeeper, I had a pool person, like all that stuff. And it meant I was paying for all that, plus the taxes, plus all the things, while I was trying to travel the world. And financially, that did not make a lot of sense. And also, it just added a headache something I didn't want to think about. It was taking a mental energy that I didn't want to use for that purpose. So I sold that property, but not at that time to get rid of those things, but mostly because I started having these what I didn't know were autoimmune symptoms and needed care. And the area I was in was too small to give me the specialist care I needed. So I moved to El Paso, which is West Texas. And I was there for almost 5 full years before things could get back on track for me. And so about 4 years, 3 years into El Paso, I was on medications. A couple of years into that, I was getting to the best I'm going to get to probably. And then I started looking at how I could still get back to getting rid of everything and moving abroad fully instead of just traveling, being remotely here and there, but making it a permanent lifestyle without the headache of responsibilities back in the US. So sold all my belongings probably exactly a year ago. was down to the house. The market came to a standstill because of the interest rates, and then things picked up off and on. Sold the house. So now I'm in Houston. This is an Airbnb. I am just getting set up here so that I have my driver's license updated to have a Houston address. So that I have the couple of one suitcase of clothing, basically two boxes, but I'm going to move it all into one big suitcase of clothing and other little miscellaneous items that I'm leaving at a friend's house, whose address I'm using as my home base here. And it'll be so I have a permanent address. So I'll be back here every few months because I'm a veteran and I'm getting veterans health care. And so I'll need to come back to get those things covered. For not the everyday stuff, I can do that overseas, but for any of the more major stuff, like my specialist visits with the rheumatologist and all that. So I'll come back and do all that. But that's my situation. It's a long story. I didn't mean to go into all that, but it's a long story, but that's my situation. But I'm going to answer some frequently asked questions around this kind of topic, around digital nomad life, expat life. Just a few questions. I have quite a few listed, but I think I'm only going to choose about 3 or 4 to answer. So one question, no one asked me this question. I just like to share this terminology. I've been using this terminology probably since back in 2015, 2014, 2010, I don't know, a while back. The term global citizen of the world is what I used to say. I'm a citizen of the world. And so a global citizen became the term I adopted. And I consider myself a global citizen. I look at myself from the perspective of being a member of the population here on Earth. And that for me has greater significance than man-made borders. I understand legality and I understand culturally, but I think from that perspective that I'm a citizen of the Earth. And so my compassion extends beyond the man-made borders that shift all the time anyway, from generation to generation. My compassion extends beyond the country that I adopted or country I was born in. My compassion extends beyond race and culture. I'm part of the human community, and I get the practicality of needing all the other things. I'm just saying that's where I start. That's where my feet are. So global citizen, people consider I'm a global citizen. That's kind of their perspective on life. That's their mindset. And I operate from that mindset. So who is a global citizen? Someone who thinks like that. No one asked me that question. It's just something I wanted to share. Okay, questions, things that I've had come up, whether in question form or just came up and they interested me, was a new one that came across my table, and I'm sure it's been used before, is SLOMAD instead of nomad. Now, I call myself a digital nomad. And maybe in my previous phase of digital nomad life, maybe nomad, it was more accurate. Going into this space, I'll still say nomad because not a lot of people are familiar with the term SLOMAD. I wasn't. But technically, I'm more of a digital slow mad because I'm not going to move as fast, as rapidly between countries. I can't. My condition requires me to operate a little slower. I lead now by listening to my body first. It never used to be how I did things. I just my brain pushed me forward. I'm going forward. This body better come along with me. Now the body decides, okay, how I'm feeling energy-wise, how I'm feeling, strength-wise, how I'm feeling in terms of body comfort, aches and pains, whatever. Like those things factor into my decision about how much I move about. So I'm a digital slow mad. So slow mad and nomad might bounce around very frequently between places and just go with what they feel from one day to the next. And me, I make a decision that I'm going to spend this many months in Mexico or the region around Mexico. And this year, 2025, I'm spending several months in Mexico, starting with 3 months. And then I'll come back to Houston for anywhere from 4 weeks to 8 weeks, depending on how quickly things happen when I'm here, like medical treatments. Hopefully only 4 weeks in my visits. And then I'm leaving and going to Southeast Asia, primarily Thailand, and then maybe visit some other places here and there if I'm up to it. But that's the deal. Spend several months in that part of the world, spend several months in Mexico, Caribbean area, primarily Mexico City, in Thailand, and Southeast Asia, primarily Chiang Mai, which is northern Thailand. So that's the deal. I am more of a slow mad. Every year from one year to the next, I'll make a decision about what kind of travel is included in the slow mad life for me. So digital nomad. So nomad versus slow mad. Maybe a new term for all y'all because it was kind of a new one for me. Or maybe y'all have been just more hip than I am and you've already heard that. Another one, this one comes up a lot. The one around expat versus immigrant. So here's my take on that. Expats are people who are somewhere for a relatively short time. There's a spectrum, is what I see it as, spectrum, okay? Expats aren't intending that they will necessarily stay in whatever place they're in permanently. They might be staying there for a few months. They might be staying there for several years. But as far as their planning is, as far as they're concerned, it's not necessarily permanent. Now, again, there's a spectrum, so it's not like there's a clear line. So someone could be somewhere in semi-permanently, but they're not really fully committed to that place. So, and they're also kind of retaining their own cultural identity while they're there intentionally. They are living like, if you're American, an American in a foreign country, right? They're having that, again, spectrum, because they might be somewhere between an immigrant and an expat if they are sort of starting to or deciding to integrate some other parts, right? Immigrants we are here. This is our new home. We live here, we claim here, we are adopting culturally as much as possible what is here. This is what we claim as home, not just a temporary home, but home. This is our new culture, our new community. This is what we own and claim fully, immigrants. So I think we have expats here in the spectrum, immigrants here, and then tourists. But somewhere along the way, you fall into somewhere one way or the other. It's kind of like when you talk about introvert, extrovert. It's not just the extremes. There are people in the middle somewhere. Like you're kind of an introvert and extrovert. You're kind of more introverted, but not quite that introverted. Like it's the same thing in my mind. So expat, immigrant, I think it depends on how you think about what you're doing, what your plans are around what you're doing. It's going to be a permanent stay. Are you going to assimilate? Are you going to integrate? So how long of a term is your stay or intended stay? Because things can change. I don't know. You decide. I think you get to decide to some degree. But it's all a little subjective, I think. To some degree, it's pretty subjective. And then sometimes there are legalities around it. Like sometimes, you can't call yourself an immigrant and you're just a tourist. Like there are going to be lines, rules, and there are going to be constraints around you legally, depending on the label that's used legally. So how the government looks at it, how the law in that country looks at it, it's going to affect everything else. All right. So another thing that I've seen come up or heard discussed a lot online is, what was the other thing that I wanted to discuss? Because I have like 25. I jot down like 25 or 30 things here, but I don't want to talk about everything. I am actually streaming through riverside.fm. And this is my first time doing it this way. So I don't know. Okay, I think I figured it out. I was going to say, I don't know how to check for chats. But it seemed like it wasn't that hard. I found a little tab here, and I think I'm looking at the right thing to see chat discussions now. All right. Oh, is it cheaper to live abroad? If you watch a lot of my videos, I don't think it's not my intention to make you think it's always going to be cheaper to live abroad, but I talk about the possibility and how feasible it is to live abroad because you can live cheaper. And I think some people might, not that anyone said this, but I can see how some people might interpret that as always being true, but it's not always true. It depends on where you choose to live. And I don't just mean the country you choose. I mean where you live, period. Like reflect on the United States. The Midwest is generally more affordable than, say, the East Coast or West Coast. Texas is generally more affordable than the East Coast or West Coast, but Texas is a huge state. I have people who live in New York, family members, cousins, and whatnot, who see things happening in Dallas and are asking me how I'm doing in Houston. Like, did that weather a thing affect your life? I'm like, no. Or something was happening in Houston and I was in El Paso, which is a several hours of driving to get there. And they thought they were concerned for me. And I appreciate the concern, but it shows me they really don't grasp how large Texas is. And even when I've told them, if you live in New York City and you drive to Virginia, you probably would still be in Texas if you drove that distance in Texas. I don't know. I've never done the math, but I think that's true. It's still hard for them to grasp how huge Texas is. And in Texas, some parts are going to be pricier to live in than other parts. There are a lot of rural areas in Texas. Houston is a fourth largest city in the US. So, it's a little less affordable to live there, but it's still very affordable when you compare it to some other parts of the US. And within Houston metropolitan area, there are areas that are really pricey and areas that are not so pricey. But just like within the US as a country, within the state by state, within a city itself, there are different price ranges, different price points for different things. Your cost of living can really vary. So same with anywhere else. Is it cheaper to live abroad? What country are you looking at? What area of that country? What city? Are you looking at city or rural area? Then outside of those things, what are your personal requirements? Not just your needs, but what other requirements do you have and what does that cost in that country? Healthcare in a lot of countries is much more affordable than in the US, but there are some countries where it's more expensive. And being more affordable, being cheaper, it doesn't mean it's poor quality healthcare. Some countries have better healthcare than the US and still it's more affordable. So there are a lot of variables to look at. Is it cheaper to live abroad? Again, where are you looking at? If you're choosing a place based on its popularity, you might end up somewhere that you can't afford to live, or you might end up somewhere that you can afford to live, but doesn't give you the things you need or meet your requirements personally in terms of lifestyle, or anything else, right? So I can't choose a country solely based on the fact that there are more people who look like me than somewhere else, even though that would be a preference to have people who I can identify with culturally, et cetera. It's not the only factor, and it's not necessarily the number one factor for me. But what is the number one factor for you? You have to have, before you decide if it's cheaper to live abroad, you have to know what living abroad looks like to you. You have to make a list of what are your requirements, what are your needs, what are your personal needs, what are your likes and dislikes. If you can picture a day in the life of you living abroad, your life lived abroad one day, what are you doing? Your ideal day, what are you doing? Are you walking to cafes in France? Are you walking to cafes down the street where you don't have to have a car or Uber? Are you hiking through the hills? Are you on a beach sipping margaritas and working on your laptop? Hopefully you're not really working and sipping margaritas, but if you work for yourself, I don't know. It's not my style, but whatever. If that's what your ideal is, what does that look like? And then where can you find that? And what does it cost to live there? So is it cheaper to live abroad? There are people who just give you an answer, and I don't think it can be accurate without knowing what's really true for you and your needs. So I don't know. Is it cheaper to live abroad? I don't know. But we can do a one-on-one discussion. We can have a one-on-one call and really dig deep and figure out what's right for you, because moving abroad is not a minor decision. And by the way, when I say that, it's not to scare anyone away. I am fully behind moving around the world. I am an evangelist. I'm a move abroad evangelist. I'm going to encourage everybody to get out of their seat and get on a plane and go live somewhere else. Okay. I say this in almost all my videos, speaking to the US population, to my fellow Americans, that the US is 4% of the world's population. That is it. Somewhere between 3.5 and 4%. That is it. That is it. Okay, do the math. That's 96% of the world out there that you have not seen, that you have not been exposed to. And yes, and I think sometimes people live in cities like New York, and I know here in Houston, Houston's a very diverse city. It's actually technically more of a diverse than New York City, which is what people think of when they think of diverse cities in the U.S. There are more countries, nations, cultures represented in Houston than even New York City, even though it's probably about half the population in New York City. It's just a very diverse place. But there are a lot of people who are from here and haven't been to a lot of other places. And they think because they're in a city where they interact with people from all these other countries or from a few countries, because they don't meet everybody, and they don't always intentionally go out and try to interact and become friends with and get to know personally these other people. But they think because they're just surrounded by all this, they don't need to go anywhere and they don't need to know anything else because they have a clear sense of what the world is really like. And that's a myth. That is, there's no truth to that. That's them fooling themselves, honestly. So I see the attitude a lot, and I'm like, just you need to get out just as much as anybody else and look at the world around you, because you're missing out. You really don't have it the way you think you have it. Okay. Oops, showing more than I'm trying to show here. Need to button this up. So yeah, it's important to get out and explore this world. I can't imagine not having the curiosity to want to see what's out there. But I've come to realize that for a lot of people, there's a lot of anxiety around going outside the US because all this, um, there's just all this untruth that is out there about everywhere else. And it has its intentions, it has its goals with capitalism. It's intended to keep the money where the money is, right? But you need to go out and find out for yourself, but do the work of doing the research. I'm not trying to pretend that being somewhere else doesn't require you to do the research. I'm not trying to pretend that there aren't precautions you need to take. I travel solo pretty much all the time. I take precautions. I do the research. I look at the numbers, and I take the same precautions I would take if I were moving around the US, as I have done. I take the same precautions to lock the door behind me, to watch who's around me, to I'm not nervous or scared. I just take precautions because I'm a woman on my own traveling and I want to make sure I'm safe. And things can happen anywhere, but I do take the steps I need to take to make sure I am as safe as I can be. I don't go wandering down dark alleys at night. I'm not really out at night a lot anyway, even within the US. I've lived in New York. I've lived in Houston. Those are two large cities. I've gone to LA on my own. I've gone to Chicago on my own. And those are major cities where people get concerned about safety. I've never had anything happen, but that doesn't mean something can't happen. But I just do what I can to be as safe as I can be. I think there's more risk with online stuff, like all of our information, data security, like all the stuff that's been put out there, put us all at risk all the time. There's more risk with our well-being, with that kind of stuff. Even our healthcare information's been put out there a lot of times on the dark web. And also, stranger danger is doesn't tell the whole story, because the majority of, I don't know if it's everyone, but the majority of women and children get harmed by people they interact with, not random strangers. Look at the data. So we feel this false sense of security, whether it's with things like jobs, like people who just like feel like can't leave that job or quit that job or start on my own because job offers security, somebody's job, or with getting out and about in the world because that's scary and we're in danger, when in reality, most of the danger we encounter is with what's familiar, with people who we interact with that already know us, our spouses, our boyfriends, our family members. Like most of our danger, including physical danger, is our handyman or whatever. Like it's people who we interact with regularly, who are familiar with how we move, how strong they think we are, like all the things they've had time to think about in order to try to harm us. So yeah, don't let that stop you. Don't let fear, some people don't like that word, but don't let anxiety stop you from at least exploring, asking questions, getting out there, trying something. Start small. Start with friends if you don't feel comfortable on your own, or start on your own by going to a restaurant on your own. If there's a little bit of discomfort with that kind of thing, going to a movie on your own. Like Me, I enjoy those things. I enjoy going to a movie, sitting in the back of the theater, having it all to myself. I love getting in theater when no one else is there and sitting back there and watching it all by myself. I do. I enjoy going to movies with friends too, but I'm just saying I also find it a different kind of enjoyment in just sitting there by myself in a big movie theater, taking it all in. I enjoy going out and having a meal by myself. I love that. I do enjoy going out with friends too to have a meal. Travel, I think I enjoy it more by myself. Like just explore because I'm really exploring and I really want to take in everything around me and I really don't want any distractions from that. I really like to immerse myself in the experience fully and I don't want any distractions from that. And I like meeting new people that I wouldn't otherwise meet and learning about them. People share so much of themselves with you when you're traveling. Also, there's a certain kind of tribe of people who like to do this traveling and bouncing around and they're always super interesting to talk to. And I love that. I love that very much. So for me, this works. So those are some of the things I've seen come up. I kind of went off on the whole cheaper in life and all that, but those are some of the topics. There are others I have on the list. I'll save them for another time, another day. I don't see the timer here to tell me, oh, I've been at this for about 27 minutes. This is good. This is a good amount of time. And I'll do another one of these pop-ins and Q&As, I guess, at another time, go live. But today, this is a great opportunity because it was a great distraction from what too many people are watching right now, the other stuff. And I hope you're, celebrating Martin Luther King Jr. Day and just giving attention to that instead of the stuff that could be upsetting to you. All right, I hope something I said here was helpful to you. Again, my name is Marcia Hilton, aka Marcia Unbound. I hope you do take a moment to subscribe to my channel. I'm slowly growing. To like this video, if anything I said at all was helpful to you. It not only helps me and my channel, but it helps YouTube know that you are looking for this kind of content when you show up, where these kinds of questions can be answered. And so you'll see more of this show up in your feed organically, helps the algorithm. So please please hit like if you actually found something useful in the video. Please subscribe and hit notifications so you'll know next time. If you're watching the replay, hit notification so you'll know next time I go live and you can pop in and ask your own questions. All right, take care and thanks for watching. Bye-bye.